48% of conservatives say no. Party identification, 51% of Republicans say no, which is against the law, the existing law. Going back to that, 64% of Republicans, 64% of Republican respondents, when asked, should immigrants have the right to go to court, which is their right? It is literally their constitutionally protected right. Americans want Trump to focus more on prices, not tariffs. Most approve of deportation efforts, CBS News poll shows. This is also almost identical to the conversation that took place amongst myself and Usted Herndon of the New York Times a couple days prior, where he went back to the same people that he had focus grouped before the election and then after the election. And the conclusions that this poll arrives at are the same. Trump administration focusing on lowering prices, not enough. Putting tariffs, 7%. Right amount, 31%. Too much, 5%. 55% he's putting on tariffs. Donald Trump won the 2024 election in large part because of the economy and the idea that he'd make Americans financially better off. He has not delivered that promise, lo and behold. Expectations versus now. Trump's policies are making you financially better off. Expected January. Views now, 23% say they're better off. 28% expected to be worse off. 42% now say they're worse off. 30% expected to be the same. 35% now say they are in the same boat financially. But as far as tariffs on prices, impact on new tariffs on prices, short term, it will increase prices. Long term, 47% say it'll increase prices. Only 5% in the short term think it'll decrease prices, and 29% only say it'll decrease prices in the long term. But that part is expected. What is, however, also kind of expected, but really sad is, more responsible for today's inflation rate. Biden's policies, 38%. 34% say Trump's policies, 19% say both equally, which is really funny. Biden is still at fault. Former Trump administration is not at fault for the inflation experience in the Biden administration, but the Biden administration is still at fault for the inflation experience under the Trump administration. Now, it's ironic because there is truth to the previous administration's failures or policies that don't address inflation playing a role in the administration afterwards and not being able to combat inflation, for example. Except then what the then Biden also is not entirely responsible for inflation, which is hilarious. We'll see what happens. Now, here's the really scary stuff. Trump's handling of immigration, 53% approve, 47% disapprove. 48% approve, 52% disapprove of Trump's handling on the economy, and 56% disapprove of Trump's handling of inflation. His overall job rating is a 50-50 split, which is better than where he was at this point the first time around. One must ask the question, why? Well, the reason is because there was more resistance against Donald Trump. There was more of an interest in all the wrongdoings, all the shit that he was saying, all the shit that he was doing. That interest is gone, which is precisely the reason why people are just less aware of all the awful shit that he's doing. Part of the reason why this is important to understand is because of what? The Latina catfight old man is pulling the ripcord, by the way. He's still talking about me. No way. How much of that went to Hasan? How Ubisoft spent $2.1 million on influencers? All of it. They gave me all of it. Everyone else did it for free, baby. Another weirdo villain, dude. It's awesome. Anyway, Trump's deportation program specifically retains majority approval. That hasn't really changed in recent weeks. 58% approve of Trump's administration program to deport immigrants illegally in the U.S. Now, the reason for that, as I've suggested over and over again, is the complete capitulation from the Democratic Party on the issue of deportation and the issue of immigration in general. This is precisely the reason why, without any sort of effective counter messaging and effective counter policies against this, even the simplest ask would be to say America's a nation of immigrants. That's a thing that the Democrats used to at least say, even if they didn't believe it, is gone. They don't say it anymore, which is precisely the reason why the only domineering attitude amongst the American population is the claim that migrants are responsible for an incredible amount of crimes, which, by the way, is incorrect. It's just a falsehood that is established with no retort whatsoever from the Democratic Party and barely any retort from the media overall. And beyond that, should federal judges be allowed to review Trump's policies? Democrats say 93% should. Republicans say 56% should. 44% of Republicans, on the other hand, say should not. Federal judges should not be allowed to review Trump's policies. Destroy the judiciary. 44% of Republicans say the judiciary exist. Impeaching federal judges who rule against Trump's policies. 59% of Republicans say they should do that. Only 41% of Republicans oppose impeaching federal judges who rule against Trump's policies. Once again, independent judiciary, gone. Not even independent judiciary, by the way. What's funny about this is that half of those judges are right-wing Republican Trump appointees. Also, who are the 19% who support impeaching federal judges who rule against Trump's policies that are in the Democratic Party? I don't know. What the is this opposition party, man? What an insane thing. In terms of the federal workforce, job cuts, cut staff of government agencies, 50% approve, 50% disapprove. Reducing federal workforce impact programs you care about, 31% of Republicans say yes, it will impact. 69% say no, it will not impact. That's, you know, you could chalk that up to stupidity and people's lack of understanding of how the administrative state works. It's okay. It's not okay. They're stupid, but there's not really much you can do. Signal messaging app matter is very serious, says 44% of respondents. 25% say not too serious or at all serious, say 25% of respondents. One of his worst issues is the Signal app situation, Doge, and the cuts, but more importantly, his association with Elon Musk. Americans are responding to that very negatively. Okay? So far, the situation isn't adversely affecting Republicans in their overall evaluation of Mr. Trump. An overwhelming majority of Republicans who describe what happened as very or somewhat serious will still approve of him. The thing that I wanted to talk about, 67% disapprove of him taking control over Greenland. And obviously, only 36%, 30% want to try to find common ground with Trump. 70% want congressional Democrats to oppose Trump as much as possible. There are still 30% of Democrats who think that the Democrats should try to find common ground with Trump. This is the opposition party's base. We are so fucking cooked. Anyway, 14%, however, even if they want bipartisan consensus, only half of those people and the Democrats who respond to this poll say the Democrats are doing all that they can. So whether they want to concede to Trump or coalesce with Trump or oppose Trump, everyone is upset with the Democrats, with the exception of the 14% that say, what are you going to do? I guess all 14% of those people are oftentimes in my chat, constantly telling me they're doing all they can. What the f do you want? You hate Kamala Harris. You are responsible. Now, what's interesting about this poll that they didn't show in this CBS News article, and I find that quite interesting, is not just on the issue of inflation, but one of the subcategories that they polled on due process. I'm going to see if I can quickly find it, or if any chatter in here has that percentage that I want to show you. It is truly, truly alarming. Because when I saw that due process number, I understood the Asmongold phenomena better than I ever had before. And I understood why there are so many blue check marks in my replies whenever I talk about the abolition of due process means you can go to jail as well. You're stupid if you don't understand this reality. If due process goes away, you have no way of proving whether or not you have done a crime or if you are a citizen, for example. And that's something that I keep repeating, and yet people, I guess Twitter is boosted, Twitter is destroyed right now, but people simply don't understand it. Representative Victoria Sparks at a town hall says, you violated the law, you don't get due process. That's interesting because that is the only thing, that is the only instance where you should get due process. Like when you violate the law, you have to get due process, because how else are we going to know if you actually violated the law or not? If it's just the word of a cop or, a judge, or not even a judge, but the word of a cop or a prosecutor against your word, then everyone is violating the law. We're going to have a 100% clearance rate. We're going to be putting so many innocent people in jail. People don't understand this. It's interesting because Republicans seemingly understood this dynamic when they were talking about Me Too. Whenever they were like, oh, innocent until proven guilty, how dare you? Turns out innocent until proven guilty no longer matters. They don't even care about this shit. They kept saying, this is a witch hunt, this is a witch hunt. Now they want to have witch hunts. Did they not understand why this is a witch hunt was a statement to begin with? Did they not understand what innocent until proven guilty means? Seemingly, they did not understand it. Here's an example of me describing. Where is it? Where did I tweet it? I tweeted about due process, and immediately people responded by not understanding my point. I said, Egg Price Suffer says non-citizens don't get due process. Without due process, there are no citizens. You are whatever the closest ICE agent says you are. To which I said, I'm afraid no matter how much we all repeat this point, lots of Americans are dumb and selfish and think this can never happen to them. Here's a dumb American who did not understand it. Was born here to parents who were born here by parents that were born here to parents that were born here. I'm good. Oh my God, right. How could he? Point at him and mock him. Lower him to uplift yourself. Yes. This is a person that did not understand the point. He also spelled it wrong. He spelled here wrong, which is hilarious. But that is my point. You being born here is irrelevant if there is no due process, especially if you actually look like this PFP, in which case you're doubly. An ICE agent can say, you are an undocumented migrant. And you say, no, I'm not. I'm an American citizen. ICE agent says, that's not true. You're going to jail. How do you prove it? Oops, you're deported before you can prove it. That is what happens without due process, which is interesting because that is what has been happening. That's the entire due process happening right now, as many Americans are seemingly blind to it. Aaron Reichlin Melnick has been doing phenomenal work on this front. Another document filed by the ACLU is an unclassified ICE document showing what it alleges are Tren de Agua tattoos. The New York Post also published these in 2024, but reverse image search shows that these images were stolen from the internet and have nothing to do with Tren de Agua. Detecting and identifying the Michael Jordan Jumpman tattoo, an AK-47 tattoo of trains. If you're autistic, you're... Ironically enough, there was a dude with an autism awareness tattoo who literally wasn't just any kind of guy. He was just like a genuine good dude. He got an autism awareness tattoo for, I believe, his autistic cousin or his autistic brother. And on top of that, he actually was a swim coach for autistic teenagers. That man was unceremoniously renditioned, rounded up, black bagged, had his hair shaved, and is now sitting in a goddamn El Salvadoran slave labor camp. Crowns is another indication, they say. There was another dude who was a soccer coach who got deported for having a tattoo that resembled the Real Madrid logo, a crown with a soccer ball on it. They deported him too. You know people with tattoos like this. The AK-47 tattoo posted by ICE Homeland Security Investigations Intelligence Report appears to be taken from a random Turkish tattoo artist profile. Train image, which he basically went back and image searched it to see where these images came from. Not a single one of them came from gang members. It's insane. It is insane that this is where we're at right now. And they just keep grabbing random citizens off the street, sometimes because they feel like they have a tattoo that they consider to be dangerous and scary, including the autism awareness tattoo. Other times they grab you off the street because they got deportation lists from individuals and groups that work alongside the Israeli Knesset, like Canary Mission, like the ADL, like Beitar, which is a terror cell. Okay? These groups, these pro-Israel groups, are working hand in glove with the Department of Homeland Security, giving them lists of names to pursue, to deport. They have lists of every single person that's pro-Palestine. And from that list that they've compiled, they have suspicions of students that have student visas, and they send that information to the Department of Homeland Security to get them deported. This is the reason why all of the famous deportations that have taken place so far have happened. How is that normal? It's not. It's fascism, for the record. Sorry, Hasan, love you, but I'm Salvadoran, and there's never an L referring to something that's in El Salvador that's Salvadoran. What? Non-citizen students are being targeted for deportation by Zionist groups. They brag about doing it. If you're complaining about fascism, authoritarianism, or Trumpism, you have to add Zionism. We are losing our civil liberties because of Zionism. She was on our list. Many more jihadis are. We will be making a new submission Monday with approximately 1,800 more jihadis. Submit to us candidates with proof for ice.gov to consider. Think about that. In any case, having said all of that, I will be attending the April 5th march and may even speak at it. And this should not discourage you from protesting against the apartheid state that is doing a genocide. Oh, he's saying you call something Salvadoran, not El Salvadoran. Oh, my bad. You're right, chatter. I apologize. Boston district attorneys collaborated with ICE to have a defendant detained in the middle of his trial. A state judge in Boston has dismissed the case against a man who was taken into federal custody in the middle of his criminal trial last week, citing prosecutorial misconduct, and found a U.S. ICE agent in contempt of court. Will the autism awareness guy be brought back? No, most likely not. Everyone is... You have to remember that these guys are not even following court orders. Oh my God, the reason why I wanted to talk about this, by the way, was because I wanted to cover due process. Where's due process? It's supposed to be in this fucking document somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Is it not from this YouGov poll where they talk about fuck. In this poll, they ask respondents, Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike, whether or not it is appropriate that they are deporting innocent people. In the YouGov poll, strong support for due process, most Americans say that it would be unacceptable for legal residents to be mistakenly detained under Trump deportation measures. The exception is Republicans and conservatives, where 52% say it would be acceptable. That is what I was going to, yeah. Acceptable or not if some U.S. legal residents are mistakenly detained. If some legal U.S. residents are mistakenly detained by immigration authorities, would that be acceptable? Would that be an acceptable part of a larger deportation program or not an acceptable part of a larger deportation program? Out of the total, 71% say not acceptable. But when you look at the party identification, 52% of Republicans say it is acceptable. 52%. The majority of Republicans say it is acceptable if U.S. legal residents are mistakenly detained. The majority of Republicans believe that it is acceptable if U.S. legal residents are mistakenly fucking detained. It is the most insane piece of information that I have ever seen. It's expected, but it makes sense. It makes sense for how stupid Americans are, but it really is crazy when you think about how little these guys care about self-interest. They are so horny to be resentful, angry, spiteful, violent to their perceived enemies that they don't realize that this could harm them in the long run or even in the short term. Just 15% of Americans think that all of the Venezuelans the Trump admin deported are actual gang members, as the administration says they are. It includes just 32% of Republicans. A majority of Americans think the admin has likely made at least some mistakes with deportations, and they still like the deportations. That's what's so crazy. The majority of Americans think that the deportations are good, even though only some. The question on page 77 is insane. 29. Wait, you mean page 29? No, there's no 77 here. There's no page 77, chatter. I looked up 29. It didn't show up. Hasan, has it ever occurred to you that you're the idiot that doesn't grasp the fact that since this country was built as a white supremacist settler colony, then of course this number is very normal and actually lines up with its history? Sally, we're talking not just about white people. Okay? The entirety of the Republican Party isn't just white people. We're talking about white supremacist values adopted and advocated for by non-white people as well, which of course happens. Okay? It happens. What is your solution to this? Is it just to say, America is irredeemably racist? Or is it to say, hey, we also recognize the same things that you're saying here. Are you fucking dumb? Of course I know this. I say it every goddamn day. Simply saying this every goddamn day doesn't make for a convincing argument for those who might be in the margins and could potentially swing in the other direction of recognizing through self-interest, not through empathy for the other, but just simply through self-interest, that maybe this isn't the appropriate method. This is what I do. Welcome to my content. Welcome to what I fucking say. That's why I said it's not that shocking when I referenced it initially, okay? Or maybe you just want, I'm going to shake you like the baby that you are, like a baby that deserves to be shook this way. Or maybe you just want to talk about how irredeemably white supremacist and racist America is and feel like you're the moral authority here. Okay, congratulations. Talk to me about some solutions about how to convince people not to feel this way, okay? Because if you don't have it, then you're just fucking regurgitating information that we already know. Roller Coaster Tycoon, pick up the NPC ass moment. Yes, that's exactly what it is. You messed up the poll. Oh, do immigrants have a right to go to court? As far as you know, do immigrants who are facing deportation have a right to challenge their deportation in court? 41% says yes, 29% say no, 30% say unsure. 60% of Democrats say yes. Only 22% of Republicans say yes. 51% of Republicans say immigrants don't have a right to go to court. Let's look at should immigrants have a right to go to court? 52% say yes, 33% say no. Let's look at ideology. 88% of liberals say yes, they should have a right to go to court, which is the law, by the way. That's just the law. They're asking people, regardless of your knowledge of the law or not, do you think that they have a right to go to court? And obviously, in this process, at least 30% were honest enough to say, I don't know. 29%, on the other hand, still was like, no, I'm wrong. I don't know the law, and I'm just going to be fucking wrong. In that same process, only 24% of conservatives say yes, 48% of conservatives say no. Party identification, 51% of Republicans say no, which is against the law, the existing law. Going back to that, 64% of Republicans, 64% of Republican respondents, when asked, should immigrants have the right to go to court, which is their right. It is literally their constitutionally protected right. 64% of Republicans said no. Not undocumented non-citizens. We're talking all non-citizens. Do you think immigrants who are facing deportation should have the right to challenge their deportation in court? 64% of Republicans said no. I hope you now understand why Asmongold says the things that he says and why he has skyrocketed in popularity in the process. That's it. Understand? That's it. There it is. There it is, dude. Well, based. If you're wondering how this shit works, there it is.